Welcome to the Science and Paranormal with Dr. Yana and Dr. Elliott, where science meets the unexpected, where we delve deep into the mysteries that straddle the line between scientific inquiry and paranormal. Get ready for a mind-altering journey as we embark on this phenomenal discovery together on United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Science and the Paranormal with Dr. Yana and Dr. Elliott. Tonight, we're going to talk about sleep, sex, and the paranormal, and we're broadcasting live from United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and on Roku TV. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, this topic sounds so fun. As soon as you said that sleep, sex, and what? The paranormal? Let's talk about sleep and sex. The paranormal can wait.
Well, as we were talking before the show started, I am lacking sleep for tonight's episode. I had a busy couple days, and it's really interesting what sleep does to somebody, how it affects their perception, their physical motor skills, their judgment, their memory, all kinds of different effects on it. It basically alters your state of consciousness.
Well, absolutely. Have you had any out-of-body experiences yet?
No, I haven't. I was just reading some research though on people that have had out-of-body experiences while sleeping and while dreaming, and it's very interesting. It still kind of follows that same phenomenology with out-of-body experiences. So normally you see your body, even though you're dreaming. When you come back to your body, there's still that sudden jolt. So it's really interesting. It still kind of follows the same characteristics. Have you had an out-of-body experience?
It is so interesting. Yeah, it's out of body. They involve a sensation of floating outside our physical body, right? And one time I had, I don't know whether that was an out of body experience or not, but it was kind of a long time ago. And what is something that would be like a clinical death, right? What is the difference between clinical death and out of body experience like that? So I was thinking because I had an experience floating out of my body. I was ill. I got right out of myself, and I saw myself actually from the ceiling. And that was so strange to me because I was looking down at myself and my body was down there. And it was so strange because I didn't have any fever. I didn't have any pains at the time. And I left. I left. I don't know whether that was an out of body experience. It was just a near death experience, probably. But at that time, I wasn't pronounced clinically dead. So I left the body and I found myself in a very large round room. And I had that room had several big, very tall doors with very intricate drawings on them, like probably like from the Middle Ages. And I was floating into some of them and they wouldn't open up. And I wanted to leave that room. And I finally was able to kick one room and it opened up. And I was floating in the dark corridor, right? Tunnel.
Right.
And there was light ahead of me. And I thought that would be so fantastically wonderful just to go there and I wouldn't have any pain or any memories, nothing of this sort. And then all of a sudden, I see some entity also flying sideways, right? Somehow I was flying sideways, and that was also flying sideways with me. And I could see that entity kind of looking like a person. And it said, just asked me one question. Have you ever thought what would happen to your loved ones if you never return? And as soon as I thought of that, I was immediately thrown back into my body and I could feel everything again and the pain and I had the fever and everything. So that could be an out of body experience,
Wow.
but could also be probably one of the near death experiences as well.
Yeah, it could be.
Uh,
I'm kind of thinking along the same lines that you are. Is that it almost yeah, it almost sounds like it could be either or, really.
Either or, yeah, because there's a very subjective line between those experiences, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting. No, I haven't had anything like that. I do suffer the odd time from the hypnagogic jerk, where you're just about to fall asleep there, and your body kind of does that jolt thing. Um, I've mentioned it to my doctors, but they assure me that it's nothing to be concerned about. That it's basically when you're getting really relaxed and about to fall asleep, your brain kind of sends some mixed signals to your body, almost to tell it to wake back up again, and you feel like you're being thrown back into your body, or kind of have that hypnagogic jerk, they call it, because you're going to sleep, and it happens when you're going to sleep.
So interesting that most of us we suffer in life from different kind of jerks, messing up with our lives, right? And you suffer from that jerk when you fall asleep.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
exactly.
happens, and that wakes you up, right? It happens to me a lot. It's just like all of a sudden I'm awakened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I have
one of the
I
most
have had
common.
it too in dreams, like when you have a dream like you're falling and like just before you're about to hit the ground, kind of thing, things like that. I have kind of experienced, the hypnagogic jerk during that time as well.
Is that interesting? Because you try to catch yourself.
Mm, it is. It's very interesting. I've never suffered from sleep paralysis, but it's a huge topic that comes up, in the paranormal quite a bit. I have met people that have suffered from sleep paralysis, and they have those classic symptoms where they'll wake up, they can only move their eyes or open their eyes, they can look around the room. They see shadow figures or almost like evil entities. Um, Definitely a very fascinating phenomena. I know people in the UFO field look at it for alien abduction phenomena, and we look at it in haunting cases because some people, they say they wake up and they see like an entity in their room. Um, it's a very fascinating condition that some people can suffer from.
Yeah, sleep paralysis is one of the common connections between the sleep and the paranormal phenomenon, right? That's what we hear a lot. It is a state in which we temporarily unable to move or speak while falling asleep or waking up. And it is often accompanied by vivid hallucinations, just like even jerks, in a sense of otherworldly presence. So many people who experience sleep paralysis report seeing or sensing entities, often described as demons or ghosts in their immediate surroundings. And they
Yeah,
can be very terrifying.
it can be, and that's where the stories of the incubus and the succubus come from. Is from sleep paralysis experiences, because one of the symptoms is you feel like there's somebody on your chest, or you have like a heavy pressure on your chest, and then of course, if you're having those visual hallucinations, you can end up seeing, the succubus or the incubus, yeah, depending on who's on top of you.
This is so interesting that I never had sleep paralysis that I can relate to in a wakeful state, right? But I several times I experienced the paralysis in the dreams themselves, because I remember this series of dreams at some point in time in my life. I would see one and the same dream again and again and again. And after each dream, the same dream, uh, actually, that would be the same dream, but one character would change every single time in those dreams. And that
Hmm.
character would soon die. So if we talk about sleep paralysis, kind of from the scientific approach, what is then a sleep paralysis inside of the dream when you know that you want to say something, but you cannot move and you're screaming and nothing comes out of your mouth? So you are unable to scream, you are unable to move. It's so interesting that my dream would involve visiting kind of a dark room and as if someone died there, that would happen. So there's this long table with a white tablecloth and everyone is dressed in dark suits, normally at the time, at the funerals, I guess. And my grandfather would be there. And my grandfather at the time, he was already dead. He passed away several years before then. And I would be seeing dreams with him all the time as if I am approaching him and I am not able to speak. I'm kind of frozen and I scream. I want to open my mouth and scream for help, and nothing comes out of me. And the interesting thing is that when I had that dream originally, when my grandfather was alive, he would die shortly after that. And then I started associating these dreams as soon as I have that dream, and the person would come to me. If not my grandfather, would be some other character that I knew. That person would soon die after I wake up from the dream. And I remember also telling my parents about it, and they would know these people because those would be relatives, that would be friends. And I would tell them that I saw that person. It's yet another dream that I had. And surely enough, those people would die soon. And that is such an interesting, a very interesting phenomena, being experiencing the sleep paralysis in the dream itself.
Right. I agree.
We have that's very fascinating,
It
of
is.
having vivid dreams and nightmares. Though that was probably one of the uh, nightmares that I had. We know that the dreams have long been associated with the supernatural and believed to be a gateway to communication with spirits and glimpses into the alternate dimensions. And every culture that we know of on this earth, they talk about it, and they have some sort of folkloric narrative about it. So these experiences, they blur the line between the conscious and ethereal. They leave us questioning the nature of reality and the power of the human mind during sleep. So I was always fascinated uh, on the mind and how it gives me interesting messages uh, that would actually take place during the day. These were like prophetic dreams, sort of. But of course, at the time, I didn't know what prophetic dreams were.
Yeah. Like you said, that's been around. The dreaming and receiving information through telepathy kind of thought dates back to the ancient times, ancient Babylonia and Mesopotamia. Aristotle kind of equated it to when you throw a rock in a still pond and the ripples start to affect. He felt that there was like information that is rippling through the environment, and while we're sleeping we're able to pick that up and have kind of telepathic dreams. Um, Dreaming, and we spend a lot of our time or our life sleeping as well. So dreams are a huge part of the paranormal. Like you said, there's the sleep paralysis experience where somebody is physically paralyzed, might be able to open their eyes, can't move, can have auditory and visual hallucinations. There's dream visitations from spirits and apparitions, where again it's described as a loved one had recently passed away. They come to visit you in the dream, but it's more than just a dream. It's like extremely vivid. Um, and the people describe it as almost being like you're right there, like you can almost feel the person, touch the person, smell the person. Extremely, extremely vivid. Certainly, there's also a lot of different sleep disorders as well. So when you're investigating these types of cases and collecting the human experience from these types of cases that involve sleeping and dreams, you have to rule out any sort of medical or psychological conditions. First there's insomnia, there's the sleep paralysis, um, there's also narcolepsy as well.
Yeah, but in narcolepsy, it's pretty common to have this type of hallucinations. And then you have to ask yourself, what is the commonality between these experiences of the sleep paralysis and hallucinations? In fact, in people who have um, sleep disorders and with schizophrenia, for example, because in schizophrenia, people would usually have audible hallucinations, right? Audio hallucinations, and in schizophrenia, vice versa. Hold on, it is the other way. In schizophrenia, people would hear the voices, and usually with sleep disorders, people they're able to see, have the visual images, and that is very interesting. So, what do you think it is attributed to? I wonder
That's a
that
great.
if the pineal gland is at the play here, because I know with the sleep disorders, like for example, there's a sleep disorder called the KLS-Klein-Levin syndrome, and the research on that syndrome is actually calls for interesting phenomena that suggests that pineal gland, of course, produces more melatonin. And if the pineal gland produces more melatonin in people with the sleep disorders, right? That's one of the sleep disorders, then the
Right.
people would be able to fall asleep easily. So, but what is the connection between then the sleep disorder and the dreams that people have? Interestingly enough, that we can have prophetic dreams without having sleep disorders, but people with sleep disorders that would be able to somehow see more and would experience more of the prophetic dreams. This has always been fascinating to me.
That is really fascinating, and of course, we need sleep to function. We talked a little bit about it there earlier. Like I'm already feeling, the effects of having 2 nights of bad sleep in a row. Cognitively for sure. But there's another condition that always it's a rare genetic disorder, but the fatal familial insomnia, which can actually lead to death, where somebody basically has the inability to sleep, and to the point where they really start to get affected physically and mentally, and it eventually does lead to death. So yeah,
Oh, yes, absolutely.
sleep's very
It is very
important.
important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very
Well, for
important.
example, that now if you're feeling sleepy, right? So what happens that you're not operating really on the beta waves that you would be in a wakeful states, right? Now you're more in alpha state. Uh, and then would be probably theta, and then you will go to delta when you fall asleep. So in those states, in alpha states and in theta states, people are able to see more into the spiritual world. They're able to perceive the parallel realities more. And that is a fascinating thing. So perhaps why we see those dreams, why we dive into that world of dreams, um, it is also to be presented with different narratives, right? And we are able to see those dreams just because, just like in hypnosis, when we are being put under hypnosis, and then we function on alpha waves, right? So bypassing our critical factor, we are very relaxed, and then we are able to see during hypnosis, and also when we're falling asleep, going through alpha to theta and then to beta waves. So that is fascinating. So the Um, the world of sleep, the world of dreams is a fantastic world.
It is.
You know, the
It's very, very fascinating. And even
we are
even dream study, I find fascinating as well, like interpreting your dreams and stuff like that. Sarah was having she had a couple of apocalyptic dreams recently, and when she looked it up to see why she's having these apocalyptic type dreams, it talked about work stress. And she's fairly new into her job. She just started a new job. She's still in human resources, but she started a new job in December, and it's a lot busier and it's different work. She was doing disability management before, but now she does workplace employee investigations. And so that's what the interpretation of her apocalyptic dreams was her processing things that are going on at work. And yeah, it's very, very, very fascinating.
now you have a family of investigators. Look at that. Now the Meta was going to grow up
I
being
was
an
just thinking
investigator
too.
of some sort.
I was just thinking too. You had mentioned about being in the lower relaxed state, and a lot of people when they're tired or about to go to sleep, they often report paranormal experiences. And I was thinking it would be really interesting if I had a paranormal experience right now, like being a bit sleep deprived. But it would be even better if you had someone that was with you that wasn't sleep deprived, and see if you both witness and experience and perceive the same thing. It'd be
We can
really
do an experiment like that, but I'm not going to sign up for being sleep deprived.
Oh no, no,
You're going to
yeah.
be sleep deprived and I will
No, no,
take notes.
no. You be the sleep deprived one. I'll be the well rested one.
Oh, yeah, that happens to me a lot. Yeah.
or or you and I can be the monitors, and we'll get two other people to do it.
To sign up. That is so interesting because, as I mentioned, in the Klein-Levin syndrome, one of the sleep disorders is also called the sleeping beauty syndrome. What happens is that in comparison to the healthy population, how can you relate to the experiences of the person with the sleeping beauty syndrome is that imagine that you have not slept for 3 days and 3 nights. So 72 hours, you sleep deprived, and imagine functioning after that. Now, if you are tired at this moment and you feel as if that come on, your cognitive function is failing, right? It's um, you are so tired, you just can't think, you're probably not so alert, and you might even have things slip off your hands and fall, right? You are not uh, quite there. So imagine not sleeping for 3 nights, 3 days and 3 nights. So this is what happens is that people feel like they feel like absolutely drunk, unable to talk, unable to comprehend or even form any simple sentences. So that can be, of course, that can be dangerous. I remember that you said that, yes, it is a dangerous thing, and it can cause all sorts of different health problems, including heart problems. It
Yeah,
affects you tremendously. So we have to be able to sleep, and people on different schedules. For example, if they have a night shift, their circadian rhythm is disturbed, and they are at risk of developing different kinds of problems with their health.
well, even I have gastro reflux disease, and from policing, and that was one of the things was working
Eating donuts in the car, Dr. Van
donuts,
Dusen.
donuts and coffee.
Donuts and coffee in the car.
Exactly. No, but yeah, no. Part of the issue is the shift work, like you said, um, being up past the hours that you're supposed to be, and also having to eat at those hours as well. We're not really designed to be eating, super late at night, so certainly can cause a lot of issues. Um, the person that holds the record for the longest period of staying awake is a guy named Randy Gardner. It was back in 1964. He was 17 years old at the time. He stayed awake for 264 and a half hours, or 11 days and 24 minutes. Can you imagine not
On
sleeping for
purpose.
on purpose? Yeah, he did it as part of a science experiment. He was actually being observed by Stanford University sleep researchers since they were
That's good.
doing it. Um, they said that he experienced mood swings, problems in concentration, short term memory, paranoia, hallucinations, but he recovered from those symptoms without any long term physical or psychological effects once he started his normal sleep pattern. Um, Very interesting, though. I don't know if I'd want to stay awake for 11 days. I don't know if I could even do that. First off, maybe if I was young like that guy was. I don't know. I think I just remember working some really rough shifts. Like when I was younger, I was working security, and there was times I was working 2 or 3 jobs, or I'd work even on policing once. I worked a triple shift once, and I actually, I kind of, well, I didn't kind of, I did fall asleep at the wheel on the way home, but luckily I hit like the rumble strip, and it woke me up, and
Oh,
it scared me. So I got like a jolt of adrenaline, and I made it home safe. But I was like, wow, like I obviously like way push myself way past the limit there,
oh my God.
having worked a
Yeah,
triple shift, because
absolutely.
I would have been up for at least I'd say at least a day and a half or 2 days without sleep. And of course, it's funny. I've never worked. Look at these little hands I have. I've got those, the white collar. I don't have blue collar hands. But I worked with some policemen that worked like some very physically demanding jobs, construction jobs, and they told me that they were more tired from policing than they were from doing the physically demanding jobs, because you're always using your mind. And when a call comes in, you could have something like an old lady's locked out of her house and needs assistance, up to, hey, there's a stabbing in progress. So your adrenaline and your cortisol is all over the map there. So it's it definitely takes a toll on your body. You know, uh, actually, I know when I was seeing a naturopath, actually, he thought that I might be suffering from adrenal fatigue, just from all the policing and all the shifts that I worked and experiences that I've had. So because I'm constantly tired, and I've had I've just come to accept that I'm always going to be tired, because I've had blood work done. I've had, like I said, tried acupuncture, tried naturopath, but the closest thing I could get is that they think I might have adrenal fatigue just from policing. So it takes a toll on you, for sure, for sure. Just
For sure.
I get you.
Exactly, for sure.
I get you saying that.
Now I'm adopting that.
I'm gonna
For
trademark
sure.
that.
Now I say it for sure all the
For
time,
sure.
right? A trademark.
Slipped right out. That's my
For
Canadian.
sure. Canadian. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, there are some strange cases that come up in the paranormal involving a little bit of sleep, but sex and the paranormal. I haven't had anything crazy come across my desk in the 27 years that I've been doing this, but I did have a case during COVID. A lady had reached out to us saying that she worked a good job. She worked for a major bank here in Canada. She had medical benefits. She was off on stress leave because she was having some sleeping issues, and she contacted us asking for help, saying that she had been sexually assaulted once before by a ghost or a spectral figure, and she was worried that that was going to happen again because she was having difficulty sleeping. She could feel something walking on the bed or kind of getting into the bed with her at night. It hadn't touched her or anything like that. But she also claimed that there was like some whispers that she could hear in her ear. So we came up with a kind of a clever idea for what we could do, because she was outside of the Maritime provinces, so we couldn't travel there.
Hmm.
What we ended up doing with her consent is we said that we would send a Zoom link every night, and she had like a computer or laptop, and she'd set it up on her bed, and um, when she was ready for bed, like already brushed her teeth and got dressed and all that stuff, go to the Zoom link and activate it and record it. And we'll record it on our end. And then the following morning, when we get up, we'll have an investigator go through the tape, and we'll look at your email that you send us and let us know if you've experienced anything or what you thought was strange last night. So, anyway, we started doing this, and she started to have like the best sleeps of her life. So we did this for about a
Hmm.
week, and then we took a break and said, okay, it's been a week. Like you're not experiencing anything. We haven't seen anything on the cameras. Contact us if anything happens. So she was okay for about 2 to 3 weeks, and then she contacted us again saying that she felt like it was happening again, that there was something like kind of starting to get into the bed with her. So we did it again, and lo and behold, again, she started sleeping great again. So, what we were able to kind of figure out in this case is that I think she liked the security because she was a single lady, obviously had something happen to her. I can't say whether or not a ghost sexually assaulted her, like in the movie The Entity or anything like that. But she obviously had something happen to her that was very traumatic that affected her. And I think that because she knew that she had people that she trusted, obviously, to record her while she's sleeping, um, she felt like a sense of security. And while she had that,
Hmm.
she wasn't worried about anything. And so she was able to actually get like a decent sleep. And I just told her, I said, like we could always try something else down the road if anything happens, but never did hear back from her. I think, as far as I know, after the second time we did that, I had followed up with her several months later, and she said everything was great. She said she was back to work. She was sleeping good. Um, I don't know, almost like a placebo effect or something. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, this is very interesting, of course, because that would be a sleep paralysis symptoms. They would have hallucinations, people in this case, like, for example, maybe feeling, like we said, being touched or hearing voices, or seeing faces by the bed, or even being touched in the sexual way. And we can think about some other psychological issues going on at the time, because the sleep paralysis occurs in the when we're waking up, and it is called a hypnopompic state, right? It can also happen when we're falling asleep in a state called hypnagogic state,
Right.
right? And we, of course, are more likely to experience sleep paralysis closer to the morning, but in my experience, it can also be in the evening as you fall asleep. That's when the rapid eye movement, REM, the sleep stage associated with vivid dreaming occurs, right? So sleep paralysis also happens more often when you sleep on your back. So if we sleep on our back, it's quite possible that we will experience someone on top of us. Because I have not heard of children reporting this kind of events. That would be in adults. So probably they already have some frame of reference, right? Because they would be, we can speak of teenagers, and teenagers, uh, uh, since the ancient times, and even now in um, for example, in Roma population, right, in the Gypsy population, that they are able to marry at the age of 12, 13, and 14. And in fact, that they do marry so early. So these experiences have not been reported by the teenagers, for example, and by the older, by the adults, essentially. Perhaps they have some sort of frame of reference. And the common features of sleep paralysis, they are the limited eye movement, the sense of an evil presence or impending doom, also feeling short of breath or pressure on your chest, It may seem like someone is standing or sitting on your chest, though your breathing is not truly affected. And we have seen the pictures or images, the paintings of some horrible creature sitting on the chest of a woman while she is asleep. And that is horrifying, of course. That
Right.
is such a subjective experience when it happens to us, and it feels so real because our mind cannot distinguish from something that we're physically experiencing or not. That is a fascinating fact. And then while you cannot move your body, uh, who knows? Perhaps at the time, this is what she experienced. There maybe there is people have vivid imaginations. Perhaps they are hoping for different kind of experiences. Perhaps subconsciously they have different kinds of processes taking place that they are not aware of. Now, sleep paralysis occurs most often among people in their 20s and 30s, right? But it can be in 40s and 50s. So, sleep paralysis is relatively common, with a lifetime prevalence of about 8%. So, uh, having that when we have this kind of subjective experiences, while it feels so real to us, perhaps it can be just scientifically explained, uh, physiologically and psychologically can be explained. And like you said, sleep deprivation, stress, disrupted sleep schedule, they can trigger sleep paralysis, right? Some anxiety disorders, they are also strongly linked to that.
That's right.
They lead to insomnia, fragmented sleep. And that is can be the explanation for it.
Yeah. No, yeah. That's one
There's
explanation.
also the research that developed a theory to explain how our brain conjures up these compelling images. And images are compelling. Perhaps we already have the frame of reference of those kind of images, so that's why we see them. Nevertheless, they're still frightening. So the research that was done at University of London last year. So instead of epic encounters with otherworldly entities, these visions, as they say, reflect natural disruptions in our brain's ability to generate a unifying sense of self. The feeling we all have being anchored here um, and now in our bodies. So, for example, we say that we feel firmly grounded, like, for example, tied to our bed, right? Our arms and legs are not moving. So, this sense of embodiment arises in the brain, and phenomena like this provide penetrating insights into how we sense ourself, uh, and how fragile this can be. And sleep paralysis can cause spooky sensation, as they say, of floating outside of our bodies, gazing down upon yourself from the bedroom ceiling. And many cultures, such as Egypt and ancient cultures, some part of Italy, of course, they believe that sleep paralysis could be supernatural in nature. And they have out of body experiences and astral travel. When your own self, the self leaves the physical body and goes on a journey into the parallel dimension. But this kind of out of body experiences can be reliably reproduced in the lab. So what happens is that they the scientists, they simply disrupt the brain region called the temporoparietal junction in the parietal lobe, top middle part. So this area helps build your body image, and it's important for your ability to distinguish between self and other. And they state that normally it is turned off during the REM sleep, which is why your sense of self is loosened up during dreams. You can see yourself from a third person perspective, right? Like in the movies. Yet other times you are catapulted into the other person's body. So that happens as well. So their disturbances could be disturbances in the body image. And our psyche is still not completely psyche and the mind is not completely researched yet, right? We know just so much, so a lot of things are unresearched. However, we do a pretty good job researching everything.
That's right.
Now,
Yeah,
for
very much.
example,
Go ahead.
I'm just waiting for you to say something
No,
because I
no,
just like
no.
took
It's
the mic. I hijacked the mic and not even letting you put the word in.
no, it's true. You know, we do. There's still a lot we don't understand, but we've certainly researched a lot. It's actually interesting. A friend messaged tonight and said, "Oh my God, my little fella just he woke up, or he didn't wake up. He was screaming in his sleep and flailing around. And the way she described it, I said, "Oh, I said, I bet he's having a night terror. Like, how long ago did he fall asleep?" And she said he went to bed at 7:30, and sure enough, I sent her the website from the Mayo Clinic about night terrors, and she said, "Yeah, that's exactly what's happening." And then she was asking, whether or not you should wake the child up while they're having the night terrors, because there is kind of conflicting information there. But for the majority of experts say that you should not wake the person up. Just make sure that they're safe and let them ride out the night terror. And because with night terrors, when people wake up, usually the kids, and they usually grow out of it normally. They don't remember what was going on. Whereas with nightmares, it's more vivid and there's more of a storyline to it. So people tend to remember the nightmares over the night terrors. But that's a very fascinating, non-paranormal topic, but still a very fascinating, I find it fascinating anyway, area of study.
This kind of terrifying dreams and night terrors. I remember when we lived in a haunted house with my family. And I remember the experiences that only took place in one particular room. They didn't take place in any other room. It was just one particular room. When children, when they slept in that room, they would have this terrifying dreams and night terrors. When they would wake up, they wouldn't be able to go back to sleep. And not talking about back to sleep, they could not calm down for hours. They were
Wow.
still presented in that sleeping state, right? Their mind still was there. In that room, in fact, was the room in which the woman who was the previous owner of the house died. And she was the cause of a lot of paranormal activity there. And perhaps she was behind all this evil activity and causing all these terrors. Because if you would just think that, okay, so night terrors can be easily explained by the psychological factors, right? Why my children had this crazy terrors only in one room, and when they were sleeping in different rooms, it never happened. But every single time they slept in that room, and we moved them away out of that room because it was a bad room. Uh,
Wow.
like there is a novel by Russian amazing writer at the beginning of the 20th century, Mikhail Bulgakov, and he wrote a novel called Master y Margarita, so Master and Margarita, about the Satan coming to Moscow and setting things straight there. It's a fascinating story. And that the Satan, the character itself, he settled in one of the apartments, and the apartments was called a bad apartment because Moscow has many million people living there. It's a huge megapolis, and people live in apartments and high rises. So that apartment was called a bad apartment. So I called that room was a bad room.
That's interesting.
So if anyone is
Did any of the
interested,
adults
what?
sleep in the room and experience anything?
No, nobody ever slept in that room after that. We never went to that room. We stayed away from it because that was the room where all of these crazy occurrences would take place, including I hate rocking chairs since then because they would always rock. The chair would always rock. It doesn't matter what kind of chair. It was not an antique chair. It was just a regular store-bought rocking chair. It would always rock in that room, not in any other room of the house. So, yeah, and that was the room from which the woman the previous owner who died there, she would always stand in the window looking at us leaving the house every single day. She would just be there. We got so used to it. Of course, it was spooky at the beginning, but that's how it was at our experience. And my question is that why, if that can be explained by medical factors, right? Why it only happened in one room? So there could be some explanation tied to the paranormal
That's
that we
very
yet don't have an explanation for.
that's very fascinating. You're listening to Science and the Paranormal. We're broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans and Roku TV. Um, what's your thoughts on spectral sex assault? I have seen cases of psychokinesis where individuals have been, grabbed and assaulted. So, I mean, I've never investigated an active case where somebody, is claiming to be sexually attacked by an entity. But if they are able to, grab somebody by the throat and lift them up off the ground, and you can see fingerprint impressions appear on their neck in psychokinesis cases or living agent cases. And, there's many, many cases of ghosts being able to open doors and move things and make things levitate. Then I definitely think that it's a possibility. But what's your thoughts? Do you think it's more of a living agent causing that activity, or do you think that it is possible that there could be a spectral attacker?
In my understanding, it's a living agent because I guess I would have to see that, and God forbid I don't want to ever experience that, if that is the real thing that existing, right? But I know for sure, Dr. Van Dusen, I know for sure that these kind of experiences are absolutely possible with people possessing different kinds of uh, gifts, and not necessarily that I would call them spiritual gifts, because I would call them energy gifts.
Right.
We are all, everything is energy, and we can talk about energy in the spirit world, about the consciousness and the universe, as Dr. Sherry says, until cows come home. But what is this in reality? How can we work with it on an everyday basis, right? How do we apply it? And it is possible. And I know it in my own practice, on my own, with my own experience. I tested that many times. It is possible to use your own energy and do anything you want with it to affect other human beings, to affect events in your life and the lives of other people
Right.
It is absolutely possible. And while I use it for the goodness of humanity, right, for the well being of humanity, other people who possess the same kind of energy, because energy is energy, there's no positive or negative, they just use it in a negative sense to harm people. And it is quite possible to do with different kind of objects to manipulate energy to get to other people, and especially when they're asleep, and especially when they are unguarded at the time. There is great that I discovered a great prayer. uh, what is a prayer? That prayer was kind of the Jewish prayer, the invocation of four archangels before you go to sleep, and put them on the four sides of yours. And that was so fascinating to me, because when I was researching that and I came across this prayer, I realized why, and I decided to test it. And I think I've shared with you before that experience that I tested that, and I invoked those archangels in the for myself to protect me
Right.
at night and during the day. And I visited a friend of mine who had a cat, and the cat sat right in front of me and was looking in all of the directions of me, to the left, and investigating what's on the left, to the right, what was on my right and above. Like, of course, like, I couldn't see what was behind me, had to go right behind me. But that was so fascinating to me, because cats, they have this incredible ability to see through the matter that we don't have the ability to. And they have this special gift, a cat gift.
No, we
So
should
to
do for
me,
you
it
know
was
what
just a confirmation.
a good episode we should do. We should try and find an expert in kind of like pet telepathy or pet paranormal stuff. We'll have to see if we can track somebody down. I think that would be an interesting episode.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I never thought of that. Never thought of pet telepathy. Although I have a dog, Luna, and the twin of your dog,
Yeah. Well, actually,
and
I was
she.
just gonna say one interesting thing about my dogs is at my old house, I kind of got into a pattern. So Sarah would get off work at say 4, and by the time she get home, it would be about 5:20. So about a half hour before she got home, I would start cooking supper. And I
Mhm.
noticed that when I would go over to the stove and pull out like the pots and the pans and start cooking supper, the two dogs would go lay on top of the couch and look out the window. And then when the car would roll in, they'd start barking that mama was home kind of thing. But I started to clue in that whenever I would go over to the stove and basically start cooking, they thought they had become conditioned that, okay, mama's going to come home soon.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
it was really, really cool to see. But now she works sporadic hours, so they never know when I'm going to start cooking supper. So I like to keep those surprises. But yeah,
You see your dogs.
Luna, your dog. I was surprised at how much she does look like Wally. Yeah,
Yeah, like twins. That's incredible,
yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
And
It
with
was really cool.
Luna, she has like human eyes. It is so bizarre. She has human eyes, and every time she looks at you, it's like you get uncomfortable, because it's like another human being with a great intellect is looking at you. That is bizarre.
Maybe
Yeah,
she's reincarnated.
that's what I think. I even know who. I even know who. So that is why I'm pretty nice with her. Even when she does something, my daughter says that, oh, you never discipline her. And I do, but I know who is in there.
That's
That is
awesome.
so interesting. Yeah, and Marquise, my other dog, the small Shishon, the fluffy, silky dog. The interesting thing that I have not been able to find an answer to is that he is so on the same wavelength with me that every time I sigh, for example, take a breath, right? Those deep breaths that we take.
Yeah.
The fascinating thing is that he would be in a different room, and I could hear him do that. even because he snores, and every time he takes this deep breath, he exhales, and I can hear him, right? So
Yeah,
that's how I know. Every single time when I take a breath, half a second he does the same thing, or we do it at the same time. This is bizarre to me, so I have not found an explanation other than we share kind of the same energy. But
that's
he's
interesting.
always done it anywhere, whether he would be on the third floor and I would be on the first one, and that he would always do that. So yeah, who
That's
knows
really
what happens in their minds? Let's call for an expert and find out
yeah,
whether there's the
yeah. I think we
possibility to
should.
communicate with them. I don't
I
want
think
to
we
talk to my
should.
dogs.
I think we should. We'll try and track one down. That'll be my goal over the next week. I'll try and track down like a pet paranormal expert. I think that would be really cool. Um, One interesting thing. I know it's a fiction genre as well, but there's like a paranormal romance kind of fiction genre where people love reading like stories of romantic and erotic relationships between humans and the supernatural. But there are actually people I've seen on the news and seen read newspaper articles about how they claim that they're in a relationship with a ghost, or they're in a relationship with an extraterrestrial. What is your thought when you hear this stuff? I gotta hear Dr. Yana's take on paranormal romance, but nonfiction.
You know, I have not heard of this. I think you are so now your cognitive function is just like dissipates. You have not slept for such a long time. No crazy thoughts come into your mind. You just need to go to sleep, Dr. Van Dusen. That's it. But I have not heard about this kind of cases from the history that people or literature I've never came across. Perhaps this is a modern phenomena that people nowadays in our postmodern world, lots of crazy stuff is happening for the lack of the better word for it. And we're here on the radio, we cannot say anything better. We just have to watch ourselves. But there is a lot that is happening in this world, and uh, people are people don't have real experiences, so we are so alienated from each other. We don't have the true human connection. We prefer to be behind our screens. We are much bolder behind the screens. Somehow we are able to completely negate the person, one of those famous people or whoever is doing anything in public. We're just ready to negate them. We all of a sudden become the presidents of all countries. For example, when they say that, oh, I don't like Biden, the way that he's doing things, it's like, why don't you just go and be him, right? Or they start talking about the president of Russia, Putin, right? They somehow they know what to do, sitting on their crazy, comfortable chairs. They already know what to do and how to be a better president and how to rule over Russia, right? This is so interesting to me. Even
Yeah,
the
I
European.
think part of it's like it's so impersonal, like when you're on your computer, because they're commenting about like celebrities or politicians, like you said, but they're not like facing them, so it's easier for them
Oh
to
yeah,
say
nobody's
face.
going to come and punch your face from the screen, right? You're much bolder, right?
Yeah,
And when this happens, there are a lot of now, for example, then when we all had this horrible COVID stay at home for 2 years, right? A lot of different psychological issues arose in psyches of the people and in minds, of course. And that kind of separatedness, that did not glue us to other human beings, it separated us. And if we could not relate to other people, we probably, some of us invented people with whom we could be in a relationship because they could be less threatening to us correct? So when we have a relationship with a ghost, only we know what kind of relationship. We dictate the rules of engagement, right?
Yeah, and
However,
there are some strange, just strange kind of human behaviors as well. Like there was a gentleman that got married to, I don't want to say it was a blow up doll, but it was like one of those like realistic, like sex dolls, basically. He
you
had,
mean got married where? Was it the civil union? Civil marriage?
yeah,
What is it?
somehow,
Or just
somehow
by
this,
himself?
somehow this guy found somebody to like marry them. I don't even know where it was,
Is
but he
that
was
legal?
but like he would actually like buy the doll like an airplane ticket and take her on vacation, and like he would like take her out to dinner and like set her up at the restaurant table. Like it was just unreal. But I mean, it's
We're talking
2024.
about the different psychological issues here. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, it's
Seriously.
but there are like the strange things that happen. I know, like with going back to
And
like
Elliot, you need to open a clinic for people to
oh
come see you. People like
like
that.
the most bizarre cases. That would be a good
Well,
TV show, actually, like a TV show about the craziest, most bizarre, like paranormal cases. Because I mean, some of the stories are just out there. There was a case though of a 23-year-old Brazilian farmer named Antonio Aboas, and it happened back in October 1957. He claimed that he had seen a UFO. He had gotten abducted, and while he was on board the UFO, there was a very attractive female alien that he said basically seduced him, and they had sex. And then when they were finished, she basically like touched her belly as if she was going to be pregnant, and then pointed up to the sky, saying that um, the baby would be taken into outer space. Very like very wild alien abduction type stories. Now that one's a little bit different because you actually have like interaction, sexual interaction with an extraterrestrial. Most alien abductees just kind of talk about being probed medically for their reproductive system, possibly having eggs taken and things like that, if you believe in the alien human hybrid hypotheses. But there's definitely some really bizarre paranormal cases that you can dig into.
yeah, but it is not the first time, right? Because even looking back to mythology, looking back, even we don't have to go back a well-known Bible, we have these cases when the so-called fallen angels, the Nephilim, uh, came onto Earth from the sky, essentially extraterrestrials, and they liked earthly women because they were so beautiful, and they started having sex with them. And of course, from those kind of unions, the giants were born, right? And it's absolutely possible. So if they could come to Earth and make children, why not have them with the aliens? Because in my understanding, that if they made us in their image, because in the Bible it says that it is not the one God, and it's not he's not calling himself, he or she, not calling themselves, talking about pronouns. I'm so against pronouns, and now I am talking, I'm using them. Yeah, using pronoun I, for example, right? There was no I, it was we and us. And essentially there were multiple gods, right? And they made us in their own image. So who knows if we, as a communist said, that the who was that? Mm, Karl Marx. He said that the religion is an opium for the masses, right? So how do we know if we didn't have any frame of reference at the time when someone came from the sky, right? And we would think that, oh, we would just create the name God for them because we have no idea what it is. And of course, they would be flying because they have a different technological advanced spacecraft, right? And it would be flying. And we would think that they would have wings because that was our own frame of reference, and that's how those entities that could fly in the air, we attributed the wings to them, and they became angels and archangels, and of course that would be messengers, right?
Yeah,
And
I've
in my
heard of that.
understanding,
I've heard of that comparison. Especially certain people. They're all deceased now. I was hoping to get one of them to speak at the Halifax Paranormal Symposium this year, but
mhm,
people that specialize in the Anunnaki, when they read the tablets or the scripture, they were talking about making comparisons that Michael the Archangel, from the Roman Catholic perspective, is this angel, archangel, human slash godlike individual that is a protector of heaven. But there are theories that, if you look at the Anunnaki, that Michael the Archangel was actually like a ship or a fleet of extraterrestrials. So, like the Archangel Gabriel and the Archangel Michael were actually being referred to as like spaceship. And there was a theory that extraterrestrials had come down to Earth and basically needed slaves or workers, and that that's the result of us. They genetically engineered humans. There are some people that believe that theory. What's your take on that? I mean, I find all the ancient art and like cave paintings and things like that where they're depicting people in UFOs and like you can actually see like a glass bubble and like some sort of like character in there. I think that's absolutely amazing. Like, where did they come up with those ideas? And you'd love to speak to the artist. Like, why did you do that? Did you see something? Do you know something? Yeah, I find the ancient alien and ancient astronaut theories to be very, very interesting.
yes, Anunnaki are so interesting and mesmerizing, and I know it sort of how to say that intimately because I did my own research and um, going back to that time, I was able even to be during that time. And if we look at the Enuma Elish, right, and all of the stories in the Gilgamesh, we can see where the stories, biblical stories of the Great Flood stem from. So that was the original flood story, for example, in the creation of the world. They come from the Sumerians. And the Sumerians, of course, they had the Anunnaki as their gods. And this is my understanding because as I came to this understanding, I started looking and I'm like, am I the only one who thinking about it or who understood it? And
Right.
in fact, there are other people I discovered that were doing the same research. And in fact, in the Department of Classical Studies, even I've researched, my research brought me to that, to the Eastern studies. It was all published. Dr. Elliott, it was all published. And the thing is, it's published in the scientific literature. We don't know anything about it because it is not for the public, but general public like ourselves who don't read, for example, that particular type of research, uh, we get to things on our own, like I did myself. And it was such a bizarre revelation for myself that I came across. And I understood the origin of all of the religions, where they're all stemming from. And I couldn't talk to other people about it. Otherwise, like I would be stoned. But the thing is, when I exactly, yeah, I would be just stoned. I can't go to church, Christian church. I can't go to mosque. I can't go anywhere with this kind of information because people believe in what they believe, and there's just no sense of proving anything otherwise. Besides, that is never my prerogative to do that. So that when I discovered that the Department of Eastern Studies have been publishing that, many universities have been publishing this information, I realized that, you know what? That's why they publish it there, because they cannot go into the world and talk to people about it. The people who are religious, they will not be open to anything than their own narrative. So that
Yeah.
is why, if we look at the Anunnaki story, and in fact, the Nephilim, of course, they were in a Jewish story much later. And before then, those were Anunnaki that came onto Earth in order to dig gold, essentially. And they brought the lesser uh, kind of also extraterrestrials, and they made them dig. And they rebelled. They rebelled against that. They did not want to do it anymore. And then the humans were created. And that's how they were called. We would make them in our own image. So we became like gods, like them, but gods. What would be gods? That was our understanding of extraterrestrials. So Sumerians, their story is fascinating. They were taught so many things. And if we look actually those type of extraterrestrials, they were called Agigis, and they rebelled, and that's how we have the fallen angels. That's the story of the fallen angels, Agigis. That's were extraterrestrials at the time of the Anunnaki.
It is
And
very fascinating, and when you
yeah,
make that argument, you can kind of see like how the religion would have started to document these stories, like turn that experience into stories, which we now know as holy scriptures. Um, yeah, it makes you wonder. It really does, And I know a lot of people always say, "Well, what happens if we?" Like how does the Roman Catholic Bible, for example, uh, stand up if we do, tomorrow find that there's another intelligent race out there of extraterrestrials, and the church has kind of modified and adapted their beliefs now. So I know back then, they would basically just say, well, that can't happen. But now the thinking is more like, well, God created everything, or the creator created everything. So if there are other intelligent life out there, that would fall under, you know, that umbrella. But I always think what it would be like if we could get in touch with like another advanced extraterrestrial race, and we could actually understand them and be able to communicate with them, and like find out what they know and what their knowledge is. Like, maybe they have a cure for cancer. Like maybe they're like, you guys are still trying to figure that out. Like, geez, we got rid of that, a century ago. Or like their understanding of the universe and where everything came from. And I think it would be so fascinating if we didn't kill them, of course, because we do like to try and shoot them down when these unidentified flying objects come into our airspace. We're not exactly friendly and welcoming.
for them, we're probably the Stone Age people, right?
I know.
In
It
our
reminds me
technological
it reminds
advances.
me of that uninhabited island where nobody can get close enough to it because the natives there defend it, and like they'll actually kill you if you like try and get close to. That's almost like how we are if extraterrestrials are, trying to come visit us. We're like very primitive to them and hostile because we send like, US fighter jets after the UFOs and Canadian fighter jets after the UFOs, and um you always hear stories and see those TikTok videos of, I know that they're fake, but of the government like being really harsh to the extraterrestrials, and we've heard stories from whistleblowers that have worked, at Area 51, saying that we've basically recovered alien bodies that have been alive at some point, and we basically put them in this like, secret military installation. And I don't know. It just it makes you wonder why, like what would happen if we did make contact. I don't know if it would be a good thing. We seem to be kind of a hostile race when you look at it.
Yeah, and I think that out of many, I think we're the least advanced one. And we had different civilizations already here on Earth, and I like the practical application, something that we can have it here to touch, to understand on our own earth before we go into the space, right? But the space is already here, and we've had several contacts, and I saw them myself, and I understand that they're here, and I also understand the different races. They have different races, just like we have them here,
Yeah, and that
and
doesn't surprise me because, like you said, we have multiple different races just on our planet. So, uh, when you hear about reptilian aliens and gray aliens, that doesn't surprise me.
well, when they say about reptilians and reptilians taking over the government and everything, I think that the idea of reptilians goes back to that scientist at the beginning of the 20th century, right? Was it the beginning? That's when he tried to find the underground city under the city of Los Angeles, right? And that's where the theory comes from. But if we look further, like we are so worried about these reptilians, and we have all of this theories about reptilians. But if we look back uh, to the Sumerian times, to the Anunnaki times, we would discover that they all had reptilian origins, fish origins, right? They would have DNA that would look like fish, right? That would look like different kind of lizards and birds. In fact, the scientists just recently discovered and proved that our own DNA, as a human DNA, has the reptilian factor in it. So we have reptilian DNA. So if we look at the Anunnaki story, we should understand that they were reptilians. And it's already proven because they're all depicted as such. And if we look at the Bible story, for example, right? Who is Satan? Satan, if we translate from the Sumerian language, Satan, in fact, was Satan, and Satan was the kind of like a manager, the supervisor there. And in fact, if we think that God Enki, the Sumerian God Enki, he was the reptilian. The story goes that he was the one who supposedly gave Eve the apple. So that would be the Sumerians, and no, not Sumerians, that would be the Anunnaki gods, God Enki, who was a reptilian, who was in the form of a snake. Supposedly they represented him as a snake. But Anton Parks, the French scientist, he in fact translated from the Sumerian that the apple, essentially, that was not an apple, that was wrongly translated from the Sumerian languages, from the Enuma Elish, from the myth of creation, the original myth of creation. That was not an apple because that sounds similar to apple, but in fact, in Sumerian, it was a tool. So Enki, essentially, Satan, God gave people tools, and women were the ones who would receive them. And they were able, what happened to them is that they were able, according to the Sumerian mythology, women would be the ones who would be working in the fields, in the land, cultivating the lands. And those were the tools that made humans close to gods, made humans to be like gods. So that is why essentially that they were kicked out of the Eden, out of Garden of Eden. And if we look again at the translation, at the original translation, Garden of Eden was not this incredible, beautiful Neverland place. It's translated from Sumerian as the place kind of fenced up place for the cattle, for the animals, and that's where the humans were also made. So supposedly, it was the laboratory there of some sort, and people were made in that lab. So that
Interesting.
now later we, of course, we glorify the Garden of Eden as so fantastic, and God came in. And of course, we talk about Satan and the apple, and people were so fantastic, Adam and Eve, right? But that's a totally different story. Of course, the Adam's name and the Eve's origin, we can talk about it sometimes later because it's a fascinating topic. But in fact, that was just the enclosure for animals.
That is, yeah, that's really interesting. I find that stuff fascinating, and like I said, I was hoping to find like a Anunnaki expert, but it seems like all the ones that believe in those theories from the Anunnaki perspective, they're all deceased now. So the more modern historians,
I'm alive. Dr. Elliott, what are you talking about? I'm alive.
I know. Well, maybe instead of next year getting you to do, maybe we'll get you to do something on Anunnaki rather than,
We can
I
do
mean,
Anunnaki.
yeah, you're
I
so
would
fun.
rather do Anunnaki than near-death experience.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, then there you go. Maybe we'll do something like that next year at the symposium for your speech. Um, there was that interesting paper that came out in 2018. I think it had it was like over 30 scientists. I think had written the paper. But do you remember the one that came out? It was talking about the cause of the Cambridge explosion. Is it terrestrial or cosmic? Where they basically felt that octopuses could have been brought here from a meteorite or something, and that they were extraterrestrial. Do you remember that paper?
Oh, yes, yes. I don't exactly remember the paper, but I know that this is in scientific community. There is a conversation about the
Yeah.
octopus actually not being of Earth.
Yeah, yeah. They thought that maybe there was some sort of like life form like waiting to explode in the right environment, of course, and Earth has obviously that environment for life to thrive. That it came in on space dust or a meteoroid or asteroid, and when it landed in the ocean, it released these microorganisms that ended up turning into octopuses because they are very interesting creatures, very very smart too.
Absolutely. And if you just look at them, it's fascinating how they can morph into the environment and be
Yeah,
absolutely undetectable. And
yeah.
they have, do they have blue blood
I think
or red
so.
blood?
No, I think they do. Yeah, there's something about their blood that's unique. I know that I know that
You know, they can,
they can regenerate too. Like if they lost like a
oh,
tentacle or
absolutely.
whatever, they can
Yes, they do.
regenerate. But they're very very smart as well. Like and able to survive from predators as well. It is interesting. It's a very interesting theory. And when you look at like NASA and their space protocols as well, like they take extreme measures not to contaminate even for example like Perseverance that's on Mars right now, like that was built in a sterile environment and people were wearing basically the hazmat suits, and because they don't want to send like an earth contaminant to Mars as well. So it is a plausible
Oh,
theory. Yeah,
yes, could be just like when we go from country to country, of course, like we go to the customs and we're not allowed to bring anything through, right,
yeah,
from one
that's
place
right.
to another.
That's right.
Yeah,
Like
just like that.
Australia is big on not importing dogs from outside of Australia. I know that. Do you remember Amber Heard there and Johnny Depp? They got in trouble, I think, because she brought her dog over there. But it's the same thing, because you're introducing like a foreign species to an area that's not used to it, so it can cause some serious damage.
Absolutely. But if us humans have already intermarried to other races, like all of us, then the dogs would do the same. And you look at the all kinds of different dog breeds, and my God, like you look at them, you're so fascinated. Like, how in the world can you make a dog this tiny, right?
Hmm.
Why would that be even an animal?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I
I
think
get
that their
I
their
get made fun of
worries.
Well, I used to own Chihuahuas, and I used to get made fun of, because I was a big bad police officer, and I
Ah,
owned
like for
a
the
couple,
Chihuahua.
couple of Chihuahuas, and so I used to get made fun of that. Now I've upgraded to a miniature poodle and a Shih Tzu, and I still get made fun of. Everyone thinks you should have a giant big dog, but I don't know. I like the smaller dogs better. Like Wally. You saw him. He looks just like Luna. Like I love that dog. Like and I still consider him a lap dog. He's a little bit bigger than he's a lot bigger than a Chihuahua, but
Yeah, but they're also the reflection of our own personalities.
yeah,
Have you
actually,
noticed
and
that
he
your
is a
dog
lot like
even,
me. He is. He's got like the
yeah,
same kind of grumpiness sometimes, and
yeah, yeah, they adopt. It's so interesting to me that I had a dog and then we adopted the two more, and my parents got the original dog, Afi, and he started to live with my parents, and all of a sudden his temper like changed. He started like barking at people every time that they would make a noise. Like he really hated people to be noisy around him. And like I'm coming to my parents and I see my mom turning the TV down like to really like really low, not to make any noise. My dad can barely hear that he it is so funny when people walk by. She wants to be in peace, and every time when someone's making noise, she gets unhappy about it. And my dog is in fact adopted that personality. And not that my mom is mean to anybody, but he somehow sensed that the much noise disturbs her, and now it disturbs him. So now every time when people make excessive noise, she barks at them like,
wow,
stop it immediately. Yeah, so they do adopt our personalities, our habits and
that's true.
traits.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. So would you
Yeah,
say
yeah.
would you say Luna is like your dog, like your primary dog? Do you think?
Primary, I would say the way that she behaves, I guess she doesn't want to, she's not so trainable at all. You can train her simple little bit of tricks, but she has a mind of her own. She's just not going to do it. It's like a queen sitting somewhere. It's like, Luna, come over here. Nothing moves. Nothing. Yeah, she has this cool disposition and she's smart, and it's very interesting, kind of calm, but at the same time, when something bothers her, she can just like can jump and either at the person to protect me or gonna start barking. So yeah, it kind of reflects my personality as well. That's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's really neat. Yeah, Wally's a rescue from Mexico. So like Sarah said, when she first adopted him, it was literally like taking like a wild raccoon into her apartment. Like he was just like not trained at all. And he has become domesticated for the most part. I mean, he's 11 years old now, or they estimate that he's 11 years old because Sarah's had him for 7 years, and they estimated he was about 4 years when they found him roaming the beaches of Mexico. He was just like a wild dog. Um, so he's been domesticated as much as possible, but he still has like some wild instincts in him. Like if he's sleeping and like you startle him, like his first reaction is to like kind of like snap at you. Like he might not necessarily bite you, but like he will snap towards you. And it's probably from his days of living in the wild. And he doesn't like feet touching him because I would assume that he
Oh,
got kicked a lot
right.
in
Hmm.
Mexico. So he doesn't like, if you need to move him along, don't use your foot to do it. But with me, he's become so good. Like he's actually better with me than he is with Sarah. Like I can pick him up and all that stuff. If Sarah tried to pick him up, he may try and turn on her. And she's the one that
Interesting.
adopted him. Yeah, like he really, really took to me. So it's very interesting pets and like how they, like you said, they can kind of mimic our behavior and how they sometimes prefer one person over the other. Um, yeah,
There's
it's
always a reason for that.
mm,
Yeah,
yeah, there is.
always a reason for that. Mhm. And somehow, interestingly enough, maybe perhaps we should have a separate topic on Anunnaki, on the blue bloods, red bloods. We have to discuss that. That would be interesting.
Yeah, we
Well,
should.
meanwhile, we don't have a blue blood that the kings have. Oh, by the way, do you know why we talk about kings having a blue blood?
No, I don't actually.
It's so interesting. It stems actually back coming from the Anunnaki times, them being reptilians, and there are actually many more different folkloric stories that talk about mythological, godlike people, right? And we can talk about them sometime next in our next episodes. Uh, so they were reptilian like, and they were imposed, in fact, as kings to the nations. And from them stem the line of the kings in different countries. So that is why, if we talk of kings, for example, the British kings, in queens, we would say that they have a blue blood. And this is why it has nothing to do with the color, right? Having being royal in that regard, but coming from Anunnaki, that they were imposed as rulers of certain countries, and they had descendants.
That's interesting that you mentioned blue blood because I remember being a young kid in probably elementary, would have been like elementary years, where I remember students talking about our blood being blue, and they're like, just look at your hands, look at your veins, it's all blue. You can see the blood flowing through your veins, and it's blue, and it only becomes red when you're cut and it hits the oxygen and it oxygenates. But that's actually not true. Um, it's our veins and the way that the light refracts off skin makes it appear blue, but
Yes,
blood is red.
is not interesting.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
interesting.
blood is blue.
But when you were talking about like the kings and the blue blood, it reminded me of that story because I remember that as a kid. Looking at your veins and being like, "Well, that's true." Like, it does look like it's blue, but yeah, no, it's really
Yeah,
interesting. That's science for you. Right?
absolutely.
That's science for you.
It is science. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, our time is coming to an end, and we should be ending this podcast and getting into the next one for the next week. So, while science and rationality provide explanations for many sleep related phenomena, the connection between sleep and the paranormal continues to captivate our human imagination. Whether these experiences are rooted in the depth of the subconscious mind or represent genuine encounters with the supernatural, they have a profound impact on our beliefs, perceptions, and understanding of the world. I hope you learned, ladies and gentlemen, something interesting that you can take away from this podcast. We are happy that you have been with us on our podcast, Science and the Paranormal, with fantastic Dr. Elliott Van Dusen and me, Dr. Yana Greenberg. We thank you for being with us on United Public Radio Network, live 107.7 FM. Dr. Elliott is just can't wait to go to sleep, although he was really now interested in these topics of the blue blood and Anunnaki and everything else. So he's
I'll be
just
like
like
this
so
now. When I
energized.
sleep, I'll be
Go to
like
sleep.
blue blood, Anunnaki, sex in the paranormal.
No, we did
Yeah.
not speak about the lucid dreaming this time. So why don't you just imagine that you are going to have a lucid dream tonight about Anunnaki and just go to sleep and see what you have and then report back to me.
Sounds great.
Thank
Uh,
you. Come join us next Tuesday.
yes. All right.
We'll be waiting for you.
Everyone have a great night. Thanks for listening. And
Have a
if
good night, everyone.
you have any questions for us, email us at scienceandtheparanormal@ppri.net. We'll see you next week.
Fantastic. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.